So I've just suggested that when we read Maclay's history and we read Roth's novel, there's a sense of doubt in the American spirit as to whether or not we are truly right and just and live in the best society anymore. Here's where we have a Harvard philosopher come into the picture of our coverage of America in the 1970s and 80s, John Rawls, a philosopher who suggests that we ought to come up with a new theory of justice, that it's possible for us to rejuvenate American society by shining the light of philosophy and shining the light of the ivory tower down on the picture of who we are. Now, Rawls suggests that there's a long tradition of what he calls social contract theory, referencing the ideas that were put forth by John Locke, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and Immanuel Kant, among others. But Rawls believes that he can complete a very ambitious reconciliation of American society. And here's how he's going to do so. He says, we are not to think of the original contract that he's going to propose as one to enter a particular society or to set up a particular form of government. Rather, the guiding idea is that the principles of justice for the basic structure of society are the object of the original agreement. They are the principles that free and rational persons concerned to further their own interests would accept in an initial position of equality as defining the basic structure of their association. So note here something important that John Rawls has suggested to us. In order to have the best theory of justice, we have to think about that theory of justice in terms of a social contract. And that social contract would have taken place at the origin of society. But here's where he thinks that his is an improvement over John Locke and Jean-Jacques Rousseau. He argues that if we stand behind a veil of ignorance, not knowing what our outcomes will be in life in terms of our natural talents, in terms of our circumstances, in terms of who we meet, the advantages that we have in life, both naturally and artificially. If we don't know any of these things, and we were to make a choice as to what justice was, what would we choose? Well, we would choose justice as fairness. We would choose a type of justice whereby we cared for the least advantaged person in society. Every choice would therefore be made with the least advantaged person in society in mind. What this is going to mean are two principles that he argues will guide our theory of justice. Number one, an equal right to the most extensive liberty. And number two, social and economic inequality allowed only so that, one, it's reasonably expected to everyone's advantage, and two, it's attached to positions that are open to all. So think of what Rawls has suggested there. Every single decision that we make relative to justice has to be made with social and economic inequality in mind. We want liberty, but at the end of the day, you can only have a difference between one person and another if that benefits the least advantaged. So, for example, you could have a doctor who went through medical school and who then took care of patients, and that individual might be able to be paid more than an average worker, but only so much that that doctor was helping out the least advantaged within society. Now, what's interesting about Rawls' theory is it really capitalizes on a lot of progressive thought throughout the 20th century. One of the arguments that is made even way back to John Dewey is that we are not in possession of our natural gifts, that everything that we have in life is not our own. It's not God-given, it's not based upon nature, but it's simply that we lucked out. We were able to have a talent that got us a lot of money, etc. Rawls is saying that we should not be able to take advantage of our natural or circumstantial advantages, and that it's possible for American society to rewrite the script of life by doing so in a way where we take away natural advantage. His hope is this social contract theory would prompt Americans to look at life in a refreshed way. Hoping what? Hoping that new principles of justice based upon justice as fairness would dictate American public policy and would rejuvenate the way that we view ourselves.